And then, but I was close, like 8:03. And then 7:59 I got on the weekend. I crossed line. I was like, yeah.
Get in. Love it.
So it's funny, those things, like so mental more than anything, because everyone just knows it's coming and they're just like, oh. But like it doesn't, in the end, it's not going to be the decider if you play or not, but everyone just puts so much like.
So, welcome back to the How to Become podcast. We're your hosts, Harvey Rivers and Adam Powell. And today we are joined by the Gold Coast Suns AFLW captain, Tara Bohanna.
Hello, nice to be here.
That's a cool tagline, isn't it? Gold Coast Suns AFLW captain.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Definitely don't take it lightly, but it's pretty surreal that that's a title that I hold.
Yeah. So we've done a bit of research. We're trying to be a really professional podcast where we actually go under the rug and know what we're talking about.
Trying to be.
So you've had a bit of a cool journey and story. Now the Gold Coast Suns experience has come in the later part of your life. Where did it all start for you? You're not a Gold Coast local.
No, definitely not. So I grew up in kind of the outer suburbs of Melbourne, out in Nunawading. So yeah, great place to grow up, but definitely didn't see, I guess, footy on the horizon there as a, I guess, female. I suppose basketball was kind of my sport growing up. So played a season with the boys when I was about 10, just because I was like, oh, why not give it a crack, try every sport as we do in Australia. Yep.
Yeah.
So did that, and then basically it gets to an age where we weren't allowed, as females, you're not allowed to play anymore with the boys. So it just becomes a bit like, oh, they're growing, and so we're no longer allowed to kind of play in the same league. So basically from there, just went back to basketball pretty much, and just kind of gave footy the flick a little bit. Not so much like, around the house with my siblings, dad, all that kind of stuff. We'd still have a kick.
Yeah.
Still love the game. Followed Carlton Footy Club, so still, on that bandwagon a little bit. Yeah. Obviously, Gold Coast is in there too.
Yeah, we'll cut that back.
But have to have that soft spot there. But so loved footy, but basketball was kind of my main sport up until 20s, I reckon. Kind of played Big V, which is kind of the next level down from state, I suppose, in Victoria. Yeah, cool. So I loved playing there, played for the Blackburn Vikings out there. So just really enjoyed my time with footy. Went to went to USA tour with them. So actually,
oh wow,
fun story. Yeah. Sam Collins, who plays for Gold Coast, the men's team, he's the vice captain. He played basketball with me at the same club, and we went to America together. So that's crazy because now we're obviously both from the Gold Coast.
Pro AFL players,
which is pretty random, but yeah, he's had his own actually pretty unique story. But yeah, so did that. And then the AFLW kind of got announced at 2016. And I remember thinking, oh, that's cool. Like I'm still, of a decent young age. I was 20, might have been 21. And I was like, all right, this is something that maybe I could pursue or at least get back into footy because I kind of was still loving basketball, but maybe getting to the end of, I wasn't probably enjoying training as much. Yeah. Still always loved playing. I don't know if you guys feel the same with sport, but like sometimes you love playing the game still, but the training kind of gets a bit, tedious, and I'm just like, oh, I'm just not loving this as much as I used to.
It's tough, isn't it? I remember when we left school at 16 and went straight into full-time football.
Oh, right.
That's the dream for everyone in England growing up. And I just remember kind of towards the end of it falling out of love a little bit.
Yeah.
And I felt bad because it's like every young lad in England is aiming for this goal, and we are one of the lucky few. But sometimes it's like any job, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where you can 100%. Just get sick of it at times.
And you see it, I guess, a lot with jobs now, and you hear about it, like people aren't usually doing the same job for that like long anymore. People have multiple careers within their lifespan rather than it used to be just you're in this and you're in it forever kind of thing. Yeah. So I guess it's the same as sport. So footy was a real refresh actually. So I went to this, they had like a trial day basically for people who were playing other sports and were thinking about maybe moving over to footy, especially with new teams coming in. So a few of the teams had like a rookie spot. So basically it meant that you still had to nominate for the draft, but you weren't kind of picked up in the draft. It was kind of on top of.
Yeah.
And they had a few players that they could pick. And so obviously naturally you're kind of thinking, oh, maybe that's a possibility. So I got to the next level and was training with Melbourne, had like a bit of a training day. And so didn't end up getting picked. They ended up picking someone else. And there was obviously a lot of us girls that were in the same boat as me that it didn't happen.
What other sports were quite well represented? So basketball was one?
Yeah, basketball, soccer, hockey, there was a few. Netball, probably not as many netball, but there were a few netballers. I think that might have been kind of the majority. But yeah, soccer there were actually quite a few soccer players as well.
I think I read somewhere the other day that netball's the most played sport in Australia now.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me.
I could have made that up. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure I read
it
it.
did, yeah.
Well,
I read it
definitely,
somewhere.
At least for females, if not.
Yeah.
Well, actually, they're the only ones who play it, really. So I guess, but that is an interesting stat, actually.
Yeah.
Because I guess in the boys play, talking boys, girls, like in terms of girls, you just play the netball, and it was boys playing footy and stuff. There are a few different, whether it's football, soccer, rugby, that probably get split up. Whereas netball is probably, besides basketball, the main one for girls. I would have thought growing up. Not that I did it, but actually, I think I did do it for a little bit there, but not as a main sport. It is interesting.
Going back to when you were growing up and playing with the boys till a certain age, and then there's just no pathway.
Yeah.
As a young girl growing up, do you have dreams of being a AFL player?
A bit. Like, I think there is a bit of you that kind of recognises that that's not a possibility. Not you really thinking about it. Like, I don't remember thinking when I was like in grade 6 and stuff, oh, I'm not going to be able to play. I think you just think that you are able to. I remember in grade 6, there was like the boys footy team, and this is at primary school, boys footy team, girls netball team kind of thing. And I was like, I want to play footy. Like, I don't want to play netball. I don't want to wear the skirt, like all this kind of stuff. And so, and our PE teacher, I remember going, like, you're not allowed to do that kind of thing. And I was like, well, we want it. And so me and my parents, like, we pushed it, and I ended up being the first girl to play in the boys team. And vice versa. And I actually got a message about this not too long ago, which is kind of cool. The next year, one of the boys who was in year 5 when I was in year 6, so when he was in year 6, he then played in the netball team.
So good.
So that was cool. And like from me doing that, I guess, and joining the boys footy team, then I think it happened from then on, really. There were some girls playing in the boys primary school team, which again was just not a thing. It was just like, you're playing netball because you're a girl. Like, so I guess, I loved playing footy so much, but then probably just kind of recognised that it wasn't something that was going to be able to be long term. So, and there was not as many pathways. So I went to basketball instead. But I guess you kind of do think, oh, that'd be cool to play a professional sport. Like, but I was probably more thinking about basketball at that that stage, because you're looking at Lauren Jackson. I remember the Com Games were on in 2006, and I sent her a letter, and like, you do all that stuff, and you're just like, this is cool. Like, maybe I can play basketball, but that's probably where it got to in basketball versus.
Did you know how good you were back then? I know nowadays in England, there's clubs signing kids up at like 4 or 5 years old.
It's crazy, isn't it? I wouldn't have thought so. Like, I definitely had a good kick, but I probably didn't think I was just loving playing the sport. And you obviously get a bit of confidence, but I was probably not the kid that was I was more shy, more reserved, rather than really uber confident. So I probably wasn't thinking,
And then what about basketball? So that pathway seems like is a bit more available. Was it kind of the girls like play AFL, they do that, then they get to 11, righto, that's done, off to basketball you go? Yeah,
well, there's probably a lot doing both. Like, I know my family, I'm one of 4, and we did multiple things at once. So like, I'm doing swimming, basketball, as a football through school and things like that. So there probably were a few doing both, and then it gets to the point where you do kind of have to choose. Some are able to do both, but trainings then become priority and things like that. And as you get higher in the leagues, like with basketball, you do have to kind of start choosing, do I want to pursue something else, or am I choosing basketball? And you kind of do look at pretty much which one am I better at. And seeing as footy, there was nothing to kind of check whether you were good or not. You just did basketball pretty much,
What does that pathway look like for someone wanting to be a pro basketball player? As a female as well, probably in Australia.
And that's the thing, I guess, once footy came in, it was like, there's 30 people on a team in football. Whereas in basketball, there's 5 people on a court. Wow. So it actually is so competitive to get to higher levels in basketball. I know with me, it was like you're playing Big V or whatever it is. If you want to get to the next level, it's like there's Seabull, which is kind of like the Southeast Basketball League. And then that kind of ties into the WNBL and all that kind of thing. But to get to that, like the trials you have to go through, there's a lot of politics too, like who you know and all that kind of thing. So that's always something that you kind of, like I was at a smaller club, so Blackburn is not a big club. You've got your Bulleens and Nunawadings and Dandenongs that are probably bigger, and there's a few others as well. So I remember rocking up to a tryout for like a state team or something, and I'm the only one from Blackburn. Yeah. But then there's like 20, and only 10 to 15 get on a team. So, and I don't know what it was like in soccer over there, but it's like if there's 20 people from Bulleen rock up and Nunawading, and then I'm just the only one, you kind of, and they're talking to the coaches already, like they know them. I'm kind of like, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know you, and I'm like, oh God, like my chances here seem quite slim. Yeah. So it's not easy, and that's where it just becomes harder. And then I just remember, as I said before, like thinking when footy came in, I was like, the chances here, like if you're a decent player, like are pretty good, like they're pretty good. Yeah. But then obviously I still had a bit of trouble getting there too, but that's a whole other thing. But yeah, it's definitely challenging. It's not easy. Like if you're at the top level of basketball, like you're good. You're very good. Yeah.
So what was the journey then from, okay, there's opportunity to go to AFLW's there. There was a draft, I believe. Did you kind of chuck your hat in the ring? How did this come around?
Yeah. So as I said before, with like the rookie element of it, so that obviously doesn't happen, but you still put your name in the ring in terms of, and think, oh, well, I haven't really played any footy, but you just never know what people might pick up or from your past or whatever, which again, I didn't have much. So that's fair enough that nothing happened there, but it was so cool to be part of it. Like I remember going to the first game, Collingwood and Carlton played at Icon Park in 2017 in January. The seasons were at the start of the year, and now they're at the end of the year. But and it was a lockout, so like there was no one else allowed to get into the stadium, so it was full, and there were people trying to get in, no one could get in, and it was like a real historic event, right? And I was in there, and that was so cool. And you're just like, oh, I really want to do this. Like that'd be so cool to be playing this, and it's a possibility. And I do remember thinking like, I reckon I'm good enough to play this, but like there's obviously a lot of hoops to get through to do that. So, so from there, so I didn't get picked up in that draft, which to be honest is fair enough. As I said, like,
How old were you at the time?
I think I must have been 21, so 2016. Yeah, 21.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm kind of thinking I'm at pretty good age here, like 21, hopefully. And then from there, so didn't get picked, but I kind of asked them like, well, what teams should I join to kind of play in a good level league? So obviously there's a few leagues now popping up in women's, and you're okay, well, there's youth leagues and all this kind of stuff that I did play a season in year 9. I remember playing with the Whitehorse Colts, my kind of local team, which Sam Collins also played in, as I said before. He was also at that club. So yeah, played there for a season, and then kind of again went back to basketball. It was just kind of a bit of fun kind of thing. So there was youth leagues coming up, some women's teams coming up, and then I was like, well, what's the highest level besides AFLW kind of thing? So there's like it was called the VWFL, I think, at that point, so the Victorian Women's Football League. And one of those teams was Eastern Devils. So one of the coaches that was involved in the rookie kind of days, he recommended going down to them. So I went down to a training for the 2017 season. So that was the same year as the AFLW was starting. And a lot of the girls that were playing AFLW were playing at Eastern Devils. So pretty much the crop of AFLW players that played in that first season were from a lot of these local Victorian teams. There was obviously different states too, like Adelaide and WA, but a lot did come from this club. So I was like, all right, well, that's a good kind of starting point. So I kind of played a lot of the reserves games that year, played a couple senior games. So again, the seniors team was pretty much all AFLW players, because what used to happen was the VFL team basically, or the season, wouldn't start till March or so. And the AFL season had started in January and was only like, I think it was 6 or 8 games or something like that. It wasn't many games.
Yeah.
So
I was going to ask how many teams when they launched.
Pretty sure it was 8 teams when we launched.
Yeah.
And then that was it, 6 games done. And so all of those girls then went back to their local clubs, if that makes sense. So they kind of did both, because you're like, well, I want to keep playing games, kind of thing. 6 games and that's it, kind of thing. It's not enough. So they all played with us. So that's where it was hard to get into the seniors, because obviously they were all AFLW players.
They were stacked back down.
Yeah.
Would you get paid for it at that time?
Nah. Or AFLW did, but I think it was only like honestly 2 or 3 grand. Like it was nothing, and they were obviously already trying to juggle.
For the season?
Yeah. So they were all training at night at that time. So there was no day training like we have now, which I can go through. But yeah, so they were pretty much doing their full-time jobs and then going to training at night, which I know happens, like it's kind of like what you do, I guess, at VFL level and everything like that, except that you're at a professional technically, or a semi-professional level. But I think at that point everyone's just keen as to even be playing and just want a league. Whereas now, as we can talk to, it's more like, no, we're established now. Like we're actually doing a lot of work. We're trying to build this game. Like we need to be, I guess, compensated a bit more for it. But yeah, so I was kind of playing in and out of reserves and seniors, and then ended up winning the grand final with the reserves team, which is really cool, because I was like, this is exciting. I've never won a grand final. I don't think.
It's a taste of it, isn't it?
Yeah, I was
get the bug.
It was so much fun, and that club was just so welcoming and just really made me love football, and I really enjoyed being there. Like as we were talking about, like kind of burnout, I guess, from basketball a little bit. It was just really refreshing. You're outside. There's 30 plus people, more like 60 because of 2 teams training together and things like that. So. Really social team, like it was just really good vibes, and so you're just like, I'm loving this, and I still feel like that now. Like I haven't, luckily, haven't felt that kind of same feeling as I was feeling with basketball. But so at the same time I was playing with Devils, I was in this kind of academy thing that they'd split up, kind of everyone who lived kind of south trained out of St Kilda's base in Seaford, so it's kind of Bayside.
Yeah.
And then everyone who kind of lived north was training out of Essendon's facilities near the airport. So I did that kind of once a week. And then that basically, from that first AFLW season, they then, all the teams wanted to have like a second team. So with the men, there's the AFL and then there's the VFL, and they're all affiliated clubs.
Yeah.
Well, there's a few that are on their own, but most of them
like feeder sort of clubs.
Feeder clubs, exactly. So what ended up happening at the end of that first AFLW season was like, right, we need to do the same thing here. So unfortunately for the Eastern Devils, they lost their VFL licence. They still have teams within kind of the Southeast Women's Football League, but VFL-wise was too much to fund. Some teams can still be in it, but it's so much money to actually be able to fund it.
Where does the money come from? Like I know in football on the Gold Coast, their clubs are kind of related to a certain nationality. That makes sense. And then you've really got rich people who are proud of their heritage, who support that football club. That makes a little bit of sense. With VFL, AFLW, is that the same? Or where does the money come from?
It's mostly, AFLW, it's pretty much sponsorships, and that's the main thing. Memberships as well. You get like, I guess to be able to run it, there's like soft caps and stuff that the AFL allow. Basically, they give you money for that. Whereas at VFL level, there's a lot of fundraising that goes on, and then basically you pay membership to be able to play. So that funds as much of it as it can, but it is a struggle, and that's why it was just too hard for the Devils to keep going. That's why the AFL clubs, basically they took all the licenses of the existing ones. So because of that, I ended up moving across to Southern Saints. Eastern Devils would still be my team if I didn't get picked for VFL, if that makes sense. So like you still have to have a secondary kind of local team, if that makes sense. So
there you're the big nasty senior player coming back in,
and
kicking out a young girl's dreams.
I know, I hate that.
Someone's out there going, that bloody Tara, she ruined my...
I know, I hated that. And that did happen to me actually. There was couple games, not in my first year, might have been my second year, where they'd brought over, so this is, it might have been 2020 actually. So I moved over to Southern Saints. We got a really good crew together. To be honest, there were not many AFLW players because St Kilda didn't have an AFLW team yet. So they ended up getting their licence for 2020. So 2018 and 2019, it was just basically random mix of girls who were playing like me. And then what made it hard was the other teams were stacked with AFLW players basically. We actually ended up doing really well for a team that didn't have any, and I think that was just because we were really good, had a great culture, which I think makes so much difference for a team. Kind of you look at a list on paper and you think, oh, no, they're not going to do well, but the way you actually play is obviously what matters, and we were really a really good bunch and just played so well together. So that was a really fun season. So was 2019 similarly. We didn't make finals or anything, but we got close. Yeah. So then leading into 2020, that 2019 season, there were quite a few girls that, because they knew the AFLW team was coming, came across to the Saints. And that's where I kind of probably struggled a little bit. I had a few games where I got dropped to, I guess, Devils. Obviously, I love playing for them, so it wasn't, can't say that it was a negative thing, but it was hard to deal with because they were just basically wanting to play AFLW players. And so I was like, okay, well, fair enough. I've got to kind of deal with that because I wanted to make sure that they had games in them before they then played in the season.
Because you sound like you're quite resilient in the way you've just said that. Were you quite stern and quite, okay, it is what it is, or was there a bit more emotion to it at the time and you're going, this isn't fair, this is crap?
Yeah, it seemed quite turbulent. Like, it was just changing every year.
100%.
Licenses were given, licenses were taken.
And that's where it was just so quick moving, right? Like, because even now you're thinking I think this is 9th season. But it's like so much has happened because they're just trying to rapidly grow it and all that kind of thing. So there was a lot of change. And for me, it was probably a bit of both. Like, I feel like I was like really disappointed that I wasn't playing. And I, again, felt like I was good enough to be playing. And I guess I was frustrated that we brought in a lot of forwards because I was thinking, I've been here, like, am I not good enough? Like, because I knew I was getting an inkling that I'm not getting picked up for this 2020 team. Yeah. Even though I thought I might have had a chance. And so when I got dropped, it was kind of like, oh, we've got to give some of these girls, because they'd recruited someone over from North to be a forward who was then going to be basically picked in the actual team, if that makes sense. She was already an AFLW player. I guess I wasn't yet. And I guess I had to just be like, look, I am annoyed, but also I have to really just support her and be like, yep, I understand that, like, she's needing to get games in as well, and there's not enough basically space on this team for all of us to be playing on a weekend because there was a fair few tall forwards kind of in that role. So yeah, it definitely was challenging. It wasn't easy, but I think it's helped me, like all these things that have happened has helped me, I guess, be able to deal with like those kind of things that happen. Whereas it's interesting now looking at some of the girls that we have coming through in the AFLW team that wouldn't have missed a game ever. Yeah. Like this is probably the first time they're potentially going to be dropped for a team or not get selected. Whereas I've had that happen plenty of times. Yeah. Whether it's right or wrong, or whether it was just or not. Like, you go, oh, that's not fair. Like, yeah. But I guess I have to just think about it in, I guess, a broader aspect and be like, right, well, I can't change it now, so I've got to just deal with it.
How did you go with dealing? I know you said when you were younger and you were playing, there was really no pathway to professional level.
Yeah.
Now coming back in and having those setbacks and that turbulent time, was the dream kind of then kicked back in of like, okay, I'm going to try and make a career out of this?
Definitely when I moved over to some, like the Saints and I was playing with these and I was playing against AFLW defenders, I was playing with AFLW players, I was like, I can play this game. Like, there's no way that I'm not good enough here. And it's weird me saying that because I'm very much not I'm not very good at talking about myself in terms of just like, I am good. Like, sometimes when I'm on my own, like, but I just feel like in a group, I'm just like, I just get more awkward about it. So, but I was like, this is like, I know I can do this. And I remember just watching the draft nights happen and, you're hoping that something gets, and it just doesn't happen and you're just like, oh, really?
That sounds like, heartbreaking.
Well, yeah, it is because you're just like, what am I doing? Like, what aren't I doing? And a few of the years I had, like, so 2019 I met with Bulldogs and then 2018 it was Collingwood and then I met with Carlton. So I'd had interviews with clubs. And
so what goes into those interviews then? What do they want to know? Is it just clips of your games and your stats? Is it who's the person?
Yeah, a bit of everything. Like, so they'll ask about you and your story and like, what do you think you're good at? What do you think you maybe need to work on? Where they think you can fit in their team? And that's questions I always ask, like, where do you see me playing kind of thing if I'm drafted? Will you be able to, do these training times or whatever? Like, what does it mean moving into like this level? Like, do you need to change anything, like living arrangements, whatever it might be? But yeah, it is more about like footy wise and like what you've done and all that kind of thing. So it can be a bit daunting. But then by the time you've done a few of them, you kind of like, you kind of get a gist of what's being talked about. So when it actually happened with Gold Coast, I was like definitely on the other side going, I don't know if this is legit or not. Like, because, I've just already got that preconceived idea of what's going to happen because it's already happened 3 or 4 times.
Was there anything you changed as you got closer and closer and closer towards the end? Was there anything that you can remember, I changed that in my routine or my lifestyle or even in your training that you think gave you that edge to finally step in?
Yeah, I think probably the main one was just enjoying actually playing football. Like, I feel like when I started to not put as much pressure on myself to get there. I think when I just enjoyed it, like my last year at Saints, which was that 2020 got canned because of COVID. Yeah. I always forget that. Like those times have just gone so quick, I just forget.
Mental.
I was like, what happened in the? Oh yeah, that's right, we didn't play. But 2021 was kind of the year that, and maybe it was after COVID, kind of going right. I'm so keen to play again because we haven't been able to play. Doing everything you can in terms of fitness. Because obviously we do our lovely time trials, which I'm sure. Did you guys do any time trials running or?
It was more old school back in the day, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was a goalkeeper as well. So the thought of playing AFL gives me a heart attack.
Yeah, we got a good old 2K time trials, which are fun. But
what's your time for that?
We actually just did it on the weekend or the other day. I got 7:50. So my goal was to crack 8 minutes because like in a key position, so defenders and forwards usually it's like 8 minutes. Last year on my second one, I did get 7:56, and I was like, oh my god, I nearly cried when I crossed over under 8 because it's taken me so long, and I'm just like, oh
yeah,
awesome.
But then this year, because we did it twice, first one didn't get it, and I was like, damn. And then, but I was close, like 8:03, and then 7:59 I got on the weekend. I crossed line, I was like,
get in,
love it.
So it's funny those things like. So mental more than anything because everyone just knows it's coming and they're just like, oh. But like it doesn't, in the end, it's not going to be the decider if you play or not, but everyone just puts so much like pressure on themselves for those times.
You just remind me exactly what you're going to say. So when we were playing at Cheltenham back in England, so we used to have pre-season, you come in, I'm sure it's the same. Make sure you do your program so you come in decent shape. And we used to get fat tested.
Oh, yeah.
This is so like, literally like calipers.
Yeah. They hurt, like the pinch, like
the little clipper.
What do they call them? The skinnies, we call them, skin fold checks. Yeah.
So we used to have an old Welsh physio called Tommy Kosh. All right, come over here, take your shirt off. You literally grab your your love handle, give it a squeeze, and then the lads' results would be like on the whiteboard.
Oh, wow.
So you literally get fat shamed.
Wow.
Like, it was over 10%. You're like to do extra running, like let's sort your diet out and stuff. Like
that's crazy.
That's like what?
Yeah.
10 years ago?
I was going to say what happened if you weren't, because I've heard of stories of especially with the guys, we haven't had that, but like Fat Club, basically.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
that's
100%.
So rough.
Yeah, and I was in it every year. I'm a goalkeeper, so I don't run.
I was going to say, does it change? It doesn't change. Everyone had to be no matter what your position.
Yeah,
under
literally.
10.
And it's like you're out there, especially pre-season, double sessions, running, and you do like the dreaded 60-second lap. So 60-second, literally corner flags, so you can't cut them. And it's like if you get back on 61 seconds, you do it again.
No.
And
honestly,
like,
keep you going.
Told me, all right, fatties, let's go.
Oh, no. So that was only this group, or everyone did it, like the whole team, or is it only the ones in this?
Just Fat Club.
Oh, no.
I should
Because
have
as a goalkeeper, right? And I'm always curious about this because we had someone from hockey come and talk to the team, and we were like, if you're a goalkeeper, what is, like, do you do all the conditioning and everything that everyone else does, or do they go, you don't really need to, like?
Back then it was.
Yeah.
Back then it was very much first few weeks of pre-season, we're all running.
Yeah.
Like, don't care what position you are. The game's definitely evolved now because if you watch a goalkeeper to an outfield player, it's a different sport.
Yeah.
I know you're playing the same sport, but it is polar opposite. So now it's very much explosiveness, speed, reaction. So it's definitely evolved. Pre-seasons were a bit more pleasant towards the end of my playing days. But yeah, early on, I used to dread it.
And if you had the test was if the keeper beat you in the running, you're about to absolutely get it.
Yeah.
So you
rough.
but you bolt off the line. Have arms up,
Try and stop everyone. That's so funny because ours are the same. It's gone so speed orientated. Like, and I'm not going to say it, I'm not the quickest person. Like, but geez, that is such a thing now. Like, about just running game. I imagine soccer is similar.
Yeah.
So I'm stat heavy these days.
Yeah.
And analytics and stuff.
I think you can look into it too much. Like, even what you said about when you just took the pressure off yourself and the enjoyment. Like, I used to be exactly the same. Like, the night before a game, I'd have OCD, like literally all my kit laid out, ready to go in the bag. And it's like, as soon as I just went, do you know what, actually, like, fuck it. I don't care if I play well or not. It's like all of a sudden you start playing really well.
100%. I think that's exactly what happened to me because that year, I ended up winning the BNF that year with Saints. And then
What's
that's
the BNF?
probably the best and fairest.
Oh,
so,
awesome.
yeah, and as a forward, it's probably less likely. Usually it's a midfielder, it's the ball a bit more. But and we had a pretty, to be honest, the girls in our team, there was quite a few that could have honestly won it because we were a pretty even team. So when I did, I was kind of like, oh, like, I'm obviously happy about it, but it was just not, it was a bit surprising, I suppose. But that definitely puts your name out there, right? Because then usually, you know, I made the VFL kind of or team of the year kind of thing.
So good.
So it just gets your name out there, like in terms of, as I said, then Gold Coast come kind of calling. So
what did that look like? Is that a random email one day or a call out the blue, or is there agents involved?
Yeah, so I have a manager,
Cool.
so agent, yeah. So he had come on board probably the year before because I was kind of like, again, if you're wanting to be serious about actually making it, you do probably need a manager that's then, you know, potentially sending vision to clubs or just having a chat going, hey, you considered Tara or whoever it is. So, and I was lucky in that Jamie, who's my manager, he had a couple girls at Gold Coast already that he was managing. So there are certain clubs that they probably talk to more than others, and that happened to be one. And funnily enough, a few of the girls that I played with at Southern Saints were at Gold Coast. So again, that helps me because obviously they can be like, hey, like this girl. And the year before, actually, one of the girls had asked me for some vision who was at Gold Coast, and I was like, she's like, can you give me some vision so I can give it to the coach? And so I put it together and with my coach at VFL, Dale, and we sent it to her, and obviously, again, nothing happened, but again, you get your hopes up a little bit because you're like, oh, maybe.
It's closer every time, doesn't it?
And so you're just like, So it had been kind of 6 drafts, really. It was 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20, and even 21. So then 21 is the year that, I had a good year.
Hi, I'm Yas Madbouli, founder and CEO of Serving Our People. Serving Our People is a general charity. We're a delivery and logistics charity that has started in 2020 to help with the pandemic and the disasters across the country. We are helping very largely in food insecurity. We've got 3 people's markets to help people to come and get much needed goods when they need it. We operate in Southeast Queensland and Northern New South Wales, and we're expanding beyond. Please come and support us on sop.org.au. And we're very thankful to be a partner with this amazing podcast.
So then my manager called me. He's like, hey, this is probably, I reckon it was around May or June. So kind of off the back of the season pretty much ending. Like it was pretty similar time frame. He was like, Gold Coast coach is going to call you. And I'm like, okay. I was like, no worries. Because different, I guess, in Victoria and with COVID, you couldn't really meet up as much because that was still prevalent there. I remember being at work when he called. And so he was kind of just talking to me, how's it going? Like, you know, season, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, oh, cool. So, you know, we'll stay in touch kind of thing. So nothing was kind of said in stone at that point. But I was like, okay, cool. And then it kind of just went from there in terms of discussions. And I remember them then saying, he said to me, because the draft was coming up for that year. And he was like, look, if you're still around after the draft, so obviously if you get picked up by another club, there's nothing we can do kind of thing. But if there's a likelihood that you're not there, you haven't been picked up and you're still around and available, we might have a spot for you in terms of an injury replacement player. So that's another rule with the AFLW. So if leading in, so up until basically round 1, if someone has an injury that happens like a season-ending injury, like we've already seen a lot of ACLs and even like I think a back injury, or it could be mental health as well. Anything that kind of happens up until round 1, you can replace that player with another player. So you still go in with the same amount of, I guess, starting list, so 30. Yeah. So some teams will end up having 32 if they've had to replace 2 and 2 are in rehab or whatever. Yeah. Once it hits round 1, you can't do that anymore. So then you just have to deal with the injuries you have during the season, which is hard because our list is smaller than the boys. So the boys have like 42 on a list and we only have 30. We play 21 on the ground, I think, and they have 24. So it'd be good if we could eventually, and hopefully that's the way it goes, we have more on a list because it does, if you get in like a few injuries, it does make your season really hard. So, so he rang me about that and I was like, okay, cool. And so then the draft happened and again, you just still like, hopefully you get picked up. But I'm also in the back of my head, I guess this time going, there's still a potential if I don't.
Should be all right,
That's cool,
and again, you think, I've had a good season, maybe it's possible kind of thing. And then, the draft happened and I didn't get picked. And so you're like,
How are you feeling, like, very raw, like, and that emotion right there, you've gone, this is the 6th time, right?
Yeah.
I've been through this, I've got my hopes up, I've had a good season. Are you thinking, nah, it's not for me? Or because you've had that kind of conversation, you're a bit more relaxed?
I'm a little bit more relaxed, but it's still deflating. And I think I still go back to the fact that I have a really fun and good group of players that I love playing with at VFL, and that makes a difference. Like if you weren't probably enjoying where you were playing and you were just like, I cannot do this level anymore, I need to be at the next level, it might have been a bit different. But because I've had such a good relationship and such a good group, if it ended up being that I had to play VFL again, it's still disappointing, but I'm still having fun and enjoying myself with that group. And it's like, look, maybe I'm just not cut out for it. Even though you just think you just know you are. I'm just like, I just know I am. I just need to get a chance. I just need a
People
chance
around
from
you
someone.
as well, telling you that you are.
Yeah, and that's hard too because it's awkward to respond to. You're kind of like, but like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Like, and I remember asking that. Like, I was like, what am I doing wrong? Like, I'm not playing much different to any of the other players. Yeah. Like, I haven't even had a shot at AFLW, so I don't know if I'm good or bad at that level. Because some people can play. I don't know if it's similar with you guys, but some people just are really good, and you see it with the boys too. Some people are just really good VFL players, and they come up to AFL and they just can't.
Just doesn't work out.
Yeah, but they're so good at VFL, and you think, well, maybe that's the case. But
why did you keep going back? Because that's the 6th draft.
Yeah.
Before you kind of got your lucky break. Why did you keep going back?
I think this is always a possibility, right? I'm like, I'm still within the age. At this point, I'm 26, so I'm like, I'm still. I'm getting on, but I'm like, there's an Irish girl playing for GWS and she's 40. I'm like,
wow.
Like,
you've gone, I'm better there, and I've got more in the tank as well.
But you're just like, it's possible. Yeah. And I had friends that were in their 30s, so I'm like, and when the AFLW started, there were girls, because the first year, that were 30 starting. So I'm like, okay, well, I still have a few more years.
So it's that age.
And you just can't, like, because it's free to go into, it's like, you may as well just do it.
Put your hat in the ring.
And I still think I'm good enough. So I'm like, I'm good enough. But again, it didn't happen. But then obviously the Gold Coast, was still kind of there. And so I remember them calling me the next day. They're like, we'll call you the day after if you're still around and whatever. And then that's when I had a kind of chat with them, and it was kind of more real. It's like, all right, well, so if you're coming up here, there's border issues with Queensland. You're probably going to have to do, hotel quarantine, or like, when do you think you can come up? And I'm like, I've got to tell work. And work, I'd already kind of hinted to them, look, I'm talking to Gold Coast, so just so you know, this might happen quite quickly, but I don't know. So they were obviously all really good at, like, they're just like, yeah, you could do your thing, like, we'll be supportive of you, whatever happens kind of thing. So I was obviously like, this isn't definite, but see how we go kind of thing. So, then I had a meeting with kind of the coach and then our ops manager as well, and my manager and me, and it was kind of just like, and I remember actually asking, I was like, is this actually happening? Like, am I actually getting drafted?
You're waiting for
am
the
I
catch.
actually getting picked up? Or is this like we're just discussing still and we're not exactly sure? And they're like, we wouldn't be having this discussion if you're not getting picked up by us. And I was like, oh my God. I was like,
what did you do?
And I was
Did you
like,
actually,
shit.
did you like keep it cool and calm inside, or were you like?
I was just like, shit.
cartwheeling?
I was like, okay, wow, okay. And I was a bit shaky because I was like, oh my God, like this is actually happening. I just remember ringing mum and dad after. I was like,
that'd have been
"This is
incredible.
actually
Cool.
happening." And but then there was the whole border issue and actually getting up there, and that took months longer than we thought. So we ended up being late to pre-season. There was a few girls coming up that had been traded and drafted. So a few girls were moving up from Melbourne, but none of us could get across the border until we got this border pass, and everyone was trying to move at the same time. We were trying to get exemptions because we're going for sport, which seems ridiculous. Like that we're on such a higher pedestal than people that might be going, because their families are sick and stuff. You feel kind of bad about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just trying to get up there and get into it. But yeah, ended up being late to pre-season starting so that was the year that.
What year was that?
So that was 2021.
2021.
So going into the 2022 season. So that was the last year of it being at the start of the year. So pre-season was starting around October, I think, September, October. And I moved up in September, did 2 weeks quarantine in the Sofitel in Broady.
Yeah.
And then moved into the team. So that was fun. Moved in with one of the girls that I knew from Saint. So that was good because I didn't have obviously family up there, and at least we have a lot of young girls come through our team now. So at least I was a little bit older, so I wasn't too bad with the move in terms of now I'm homesick kind of thing. I wasn't too bad like that, which is good. But yeah, so then just got cracked into it, and I just went, oh my God, like this is so cool. Like I'm now on an AFLW list, and I didn't care kind of how I got there or who I was with. I was like, I just want to play, like because I remember them asking me, would you be keen to come up here? I was like, I'll go anywhere. I've already tried for so long. I was like, I'll go anywhere. So
that's incredible because to give a bit of context, you've got 6 years of just missing out with the draft.
Yeah.
You then get your chance through an injury spot. Yeah. And then how long after that are you named the captain? Because that's quite incredible.
Yeah. So my first season, obviously nothing was there. But the captain that was in place at that point, she ended up trading. So the next year, 4 more teams came in to the league. So Port in Adelaide, and then Essendon. Who else was there? Hawthorn and West Coast. No, West Coast was already in there. I can't remember who the other one was. But anyway, so there was 4 teams that come in, and so a lot of girls. There was a lot of movement then in that kind of period, and that was when the first season was in January until like March, April, and then we had a second season that went from what is now kind of August till December kind of thing. So it was a quick turnaround as well, but we had a lot of movement there, and a lot of girls that we didn't want to go went to Port and a few other clubs, and so it was quite a whirlwind because it was just a lot of, and our captain left. So captain left and a few other players left, and it was like, whoa, this is a lot of change quickly. And so for the next season, I was then named captain in that second season of the same year. So
incredible.
Basically, I played one season, and the next season I was captain. So
why did they give you captain?
Have you always been a natural leader, do you feel?
I was in the leadership group and a co-captain. So at Saints, there was 1 year we had 5 captains, which is ridiculous. But the thought process was that with females, like, a lot of times with men, maybe that's like an alpha dog and that they're okay to kind of be led by one. Whereas sometimes with females, there's a lot of different personalities. Not that there aren't, obviously, with men too, but they might feel comfortable talking to other people rather than it's not really as much of a straight down the line player. So that's what the idea was. And it was fine, but it was just a bit hard to kind of work out who's the ones doing what. And yeah, exactly, too many cooks. So to be a sole captain then was a bit of a weird one for me. But I just remember I remember Joycey, our coach, calling me and he's like, we'd love for you to be the captain, like obviously been voted in. But we'll have all the support. Like we obviously know that it's, it's been quite a quick turnaround from the other season. Yeah. There's still vice captains and stuff and a leadership group that we all chop and change. Like yes, I have the title. We all work together and we all step up when we need to. So it's not like it's just me or anything and that's it. Which is really nice and like we all get along so well and work with each other really well. That it kind of did make it a bit more seamless, but at the same time, it is still nerve-wracking, especially when you start then doing more media stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, I only just kind of got here. Bit imposter syndrome, a bit, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because you're just like, I don't think I should be here. Like, why am I in this role? And I guess I am someone who I think I try and be as caring as I can, like to my teammates, and I want the best out of them. So I try and bring that out of them. And the different ways that they need it, because not everyone obviously is the same. So I guess probably my genuine care, I suppose, towards my teammates, and that's probably one of the reasons. And I'm definitely not one who doesn't speak up when I need to in terms of on the field, just talking and whatever. So probably elements like that. I'm like by no means the best player in our team, but I guess just able to bring, I guess, the group together is probably the biggest one there. I love the social side of things. I love the banter. I love all these just funny random shit that we just do, like just to make everyone laugh and have a good time. So that's probably the main ones there. Yeah,
it's a tough transition, because I know in our recruitment agency, we went from being just recruiters at a global firm where we weren't really leading anyone to then all of a sudden we're starting an agency and bringing in a team. And then that transition into leadership, like I know we went hard with the personal development. Like we've thrown thousands just to try and get the professionals to coach us. Did the club give you any support around that?
We do have like a leadership consultant, like similar to Alex Rance for the boys. He's come in from obviously many years at Richmond, and he has business ventures and things like that too. We had, his name's Jared Murphy. He's come in and he's done a lot with Paul Roos, who's like an ex-Sydney coach and player and things. They both basically, I think they co-own, I'm not really sure, but they co-run it, basically a leadership thing. They do a lot of workshops with businesses and stuff like that. Cool. So he was really good coming in. A lot of kind of things that come out at you and you're like, oh God, like am I prepared to do that? Because he basically wanted to be more the onus on the leadership. So if there's any disciplinary things, he wanted it to be more coming from us rather than the coaches. And that was probably the hardest bit for me. Just knowing that like I really want to have good relationships with my players and my teammates, and it's always hard to do. I don't know if you guys have to do much of that, but like it's hard to have those more difficult conversations when you're not used to it, but it just is honestly practice. I don't know if you've there's no cookie cutter way of doing it, which is probably what you guys have found too. They can prepare you, but there's also just so many things that you just have to do on a whim and just hope, like trust your gut and
trust your gut.
Yeah,
exactly
just
the words
know,
I was thinking.
Just know that you're never going to do anything to kind of, your intention is always the right thing, hopefully, and sometimes you're going to have to you'll stuff up, and it's like, I just have to own that I've made that wrong call, but.
Yeah,
happens.
We had Ryan Tuckwood on here a few episodes ago, and he's just spent 5 days on Necker Island with Richard Branson.
Cool.
And he said his golden takeaway from Branson was that the bigger the decision, the more you go with your gut. Yeah,
which is interesting, isn't it? Because like, especially if it's a big one, like you feel like you'd be going over it and over and over. And I'm definitely an indecisive person, so I'm like, oh, is it this, is it that, is it that, is it this? Like, which one do you go with? Like sitting there probably toying with it, and people probably, and I like, the players, for example, probably wouldn't know sometimes that you're feeling like that. Like you're really, it's not like you've just decided, we're doing this. Like, and sometimes you do, but like you actually have thought about it probably more than what they think, and you're, potentially losing sleep or whatever over it, because you're just like, some of these decisions are not easy.
That imposter syndrome one you said, so true, right?
Yeah.
It never goes away. I'm sure you'd have had it from signing the first deal or contract. Great, now I'm an AFLW player. Mm-hmm. And then a year later, okay, now I'm captain. Does it ever
just get bigger, don't they?
Yeah, definitely doesn't get easier, does it? And I still feel like I suffer, if it's a suffer, from it, because you just, I think it's like the whole belief in yourself, I guess, is a massive one that probably changes your mindset on it. But I feel like a lot of people have that, like, and it's just in there, because you're just like, how am I doing this?
I think you need a bit of it though. I think if you haven't got any of imposter syndrome, you're probably too far gone the other side.
Like to say, successful people that have got it.
Yeah, probably a bit arrogant and probably not.
That's true.
In the right rooms, right? If you're the best person in the room, every room you're in, you're hanging around with the wrong people.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The AFLW today, where's it at in terms? It seems like it's come such a long way. What does your training schedule look like? So I guess my first season, it was still evenings. So I was still working. When I first came up here, I ended up driving. I was driving back and forth from Goodna. So I don't know if you know where that is.
No idea where it is.
Kind of like Ipswich way. So it's probably an hour and a half. And then add on M1 traffic, which isn't excellent. So I'd be there getting out. And I do honestly think sometimes, like, how was I doing those schedules and then playing footy as well? But I was probably leaving the house at 4:45, trekking up there and then coming back for training. So basically 3 hours in the car on that day plus work, and then coming back to training for like 6 o'clock. Whereas now, and I was doing that 4 days a week, still had the Friday off because I was like,
So Monday to Thursday and then game on the weekend. Wow.
Yeah, basically. So now, and that was all evenings, as I said. So there might have been one night. There was one night off. I don't know if it was a Tuesday or a Wednesday, because I remember I used to stay up in Goodna one night just to make it easier, so I didn't come back, and that was always the off training night. So now we do Monday evening, so kind of like 3 till 7, Tuesday days, which was an absolute game changer. Like for us to be at the club during the day, it's like, oh my God, we feel much more professional.
Proper.
We're there when the guys are there, so that relationship starts to build a lot better too, and you feel more part of the club. So we're there from 7-ish till 4 on a Tuesday.
Big day.
So it is a full day.
Yeah, wow.
What does that look like?
And people are like, yeah, what are you doing for that whole time? But I guess we come in, have prep, have a meeting, usually team meeting for like half an hour or so, train for 2 to 2.5 hours, come off the track. Lunch is kind of an hour and a half where you can do recovery and stuff too, because we have the pools and heat baths and things like that. And then lunch, as I said, and then we kind of split into rotations of gym, treatment and massage, which we love, just quick cheeky 20-minute massage, and then lines and like line craft. So as a forward, we go into a forward line. We might look at vision. So you have the trainings filmed either by drone or just the cameras that are just still, and then we'll watch vision literally from what happened literally 2 hours ago. So that's pretty cool, because it's kind of like you can get that instant feedback of what we've done as a group, what we can improve on, and then we'll go out and do a bit of skills as a line. And then that's pretty much the day. It does go quick, but you also feel like you've been there for weeks, and you're just like, wow.
Those days are the ones you must feel like we've made it here. Like
They're the days,
this is it. I wish this was every single day.
100%, and that's what I guess the guys get right. So it's like that's where it's leading. 100%.
Did you think
it
would get
going.
there?
Definitely.
Awesome.
So that was last season. We did one. So we had Monday, Tuesday day, Wednesdays off. Thursday it was the evening.
Yeah.
And then Friday off, Saturday morning, so till kind of 11, and then Sunday off. So now it's Monday night, Tuesday day, Wednesday off still, Thursday day. Awesome. So we're there again 7 till but more 1:30. Some still stay longer because they might have catch-ups with coaches to watch vision or whatever. So some people will be there till 3 or 4, but that's just because they love it and they want to get better. And then Friday's off still, but Fridays will end up being travel days for us, because obviously when we're in season, we do a fair bit of travel because we're interstate. Or it might be a captain's run, so we come in and do training. So if we play a Saturday game at home, we'll come in on Fridays to do like a session that's just basically a flush kind of run. We'll have a meeting, what's our strategy, what's the team look like, that kind of thing. So in season's a bit different, it's just the extra kind of travel. And this year they've added in an extra game, but it's still 10. So it's 11 games, but 10 weeks, whereas last year it was 10 weeks, 10 games.
So where does that week fit in? Where does the game fit in?
Yeah, so it's midweek. So we have a Friday game, Wednesday game, Sunday game so it's basically 3 games in this kind of thing. So we go to Melbourne and we just stay there for a week, because we'll play in Melbourne Friday and Wednesday and then come back and play at home on the Sunday. So it'll be a bit hectic, and that's where work balance stuff comes in, because a lot of us work, and so then we're going to have to start having those conversations now, being like, hey, that week I'll be away, like I won't be able to come in, and my work's really good, so I'm lucky that they're really supportive of it, but not everyone else is like that, so I'm lucky.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. My next question is how the hell do you balance that schedule with work? Because I know even back in England, you drop out of the pro leagues, and that first kind of semi-professional league, it's just 2 nights a week. Yeah. So you'll do a Tuesday night 6 till 8:30 and a Thursday night 6 till 8:30. So it's easy to balance with work, but your schedule seems a lot different to that.
A lot different. As of the first year, it was pretty good, because you could still, most people could, like we've got teachers in our team. Cool. One's a ranger, like a park ranger, like a lot of different things. So, and accountants and all that kind of stuff, working from home, whatever it might be. So that kind of stuffs it around a bit, because you're just like, okay, now that we're working from home, we're working during the day, those girls that were teachers or whatever, like they can't do their classes, like that's just what it is. So we've all had to obviously change things up. But for me, I'm lucky that John Holland, like they have a partnership with the AFLW, so I'm an ambassador for that. And they're trying to get as many kind of AFLW players as they can, working for them and promoting them, being able to kind of start working in construction but still be able to do footy. So for me, like they've been so good. They literally like whatever you need to do kind of thing. So off season, so when we're in off season, I do kind of 4 days a week. A lot of them are still staggered because we still have training in the morning sometimes and things. But now that we're in pre-season, I work Mondays till kind of 1-ish, a bit later, and then go to the club. So 6 to 1. And then Wednesdays are kind of fullish days, so 6 till 3, because I usually go and then do recovery and things like that. And then Fridays is also 6 till kind of midday, because then we usually have things that we go into the club for as well that just pop up and that. So definitely scales down once I'm in season, but I'm just really lucky that my job allows me to be balanced. And that doesn't usually happen in construction. Construction's usually you're there from 6 till 6 and you're there every day, and that's just what it is. Whereas for me, I've just been, it's a hard one because I feel like I've struggled with wanting to, I really want to be someone who has an impact and like actually is doing stuff. And I feel like, not that I am taking the piss, but like that's what it sometimes feels like because you're just in and out so much and I'm not maybe contributing as much as I want to. And I obviously want to keep growing in, you know, the safety space, but it's very hard to be promoted and things like that. I can't really be promoted because I'm not doing much. Like I'm not there as many days. So yeah, that's the only probably struggle that I find. I've been trying to just change my mindset in that footy is basically your priority right now. Like when you're in season, and as much as I want it to be both, it's really hard to. And I give everything I can when I'm at work, but I can't do as much as I would be able to if I was working 5 days. So I probably, that's the hardest bit for me, is just trying to know that I can't actually contribute as much as you want to, and it's just the way it is.
And I guess John Holland having that partnership with the AFLW, they must recognise that, we might not get 5-6 days a week from these people, but the time we do get them, because they're so competitive and good at sport, they're actually going to bring really good attributes into the business.
So
100%, and that's probably the biggest, like one of the things that they talk about a bit is like, as you said, teamwork. Like we're literally working in a team whether you're in sport or not, and it's crazy actually how many things cross over really well. Like everything I do in football is what I do, like what you do in here. There's conflict, there's people talking about stuff and you're trying to stop it and all that kind of thing. They have been really good for that, and they know that is the case, that there'll be attributes that you then bring into post-footy as well that you would have learnt through that kind of teamwork. That's why like the police and all, they always come and talk to us going, the things that you talk about in footy like are so relevant to that kind of workforce. And it's the same with construction or anywhere really. Like the more I think about it, the more I realise that like there's just so many crossovers with everything.
We've definitely felt that like since stepping into recruitment, which in a way it is sales and even launching our own agency. It's like the dog that we've got from that kind of those early pro football days in England where it 100%. Is cutthroat. That's definitely set us out from the crowd and put us on that path now. Have you ever had any situations already where like you've won a promotion and you think it's because just that attitude?
I think so, yeah. And like I think like just, and you guys would know it from sport, like communication, and we talk about it all the time. Like if there's any issues, it's usually comms.
Yeah.
But it's the same in the workforce. I feel like you being able to talk to people and communicate with people just straight away brings that into like the business world and everything outside of sport. I feel like I'm able to talk to people so much better because you just have that in you with your sport. Like you're always doing that. It's always so yeah, it's pretty cool.
And even being coachable. I think it's not easy to have, if someone's never played sport, to have someone who's telling them, no, you've done that wrong, you need to change this. They don't receive it in the same way. Whereas we've had coaches go, okay, you passed that wrong, you need to use this part of your foot, or you need to do things differently. And you kind of go, okay, great, I know you're telling me that because you want me to be better. You take it in the right way rather than an attack.
Totally.
Which is a tough thing to learn as an adult, I think.
It is, and then it goes back to that resilience thing as well we were talking about before. Like, you're able to probably cop a bit more because you just like, yep, I can go through that. Like, it's fine.
That's it. It's great that your employer are so supportive of it because, again, I know in the football world it's hard. You're trying to spin both of these plates where semi-pro sport isn't forever and you don't make enough money to even live off, let alone retire. So it's, can I keep this moving in terms of my career? So when you do stop your playing days, you've got something to then focus on.
100%. That's a big one. Like, obviously, Gold Coast lifestyle is awesome. You can go surfing, you can go do whatever you want. But that's a big one for the young girls coming through too. I'm like, make sure, like, as someone who's a bit older, I'm like, I'm lucky that when I came into footy, I already had my career that I could keep doing. And luckily, again, that they were supportive of it. Otherwise, I would have to find something else because you just wouldn't be able to do it if I had to be 5 days a week. Whereas that's where John Holland's been really good because they've just allowed for that balance. And I guess it's, again, going back to that, oh, my God, I get to play sport, so I can do the balancing. But I think it's then trying to make it possible that, we actually can be flexible in other ways as well, like people who aren't sports people, whether it's job sharing or whatever it might be, that maybe it is possible for other people to do it because I just can't. But maybe they can. Like, I think it's showing that it's possible to still be able to contribute and do something else. Because obviously there's a lot of people that are parents or whatever, or you just like doing your social things. Like, hey, I'm going to be an hour later because I really need to do this because it's great for my, mental well-being or whatever. Like, and I think we are getting there, but there's still so much talk and, not as much action maybe. But yeah, I'd say they've been really good with that kind of flexibility for me. But with the younger girls, I'm like, you need to try and start to have something, whether it is studying or it is a job or like you've already got a degree or whatever, but something you can fall back on. Because once you get into season, if you're not getting picked, you know, what else have you got going on? Because for me, I'm like, oh, I've had a bit of a shit one at training or whatever. I haven't had a great day. But then the next day I'm coming here and I'm doing something totally different. I'm not thinking about football. It's a total different focus. So we're trying to be really strong on that. And as it gets more professional, it's going to be harder for the younger girls, like, because they're just going to go, sweet, I have enough. If I'm 18 earning 50 grand, you're laughing. Like, I'm like, this is great. Like, living at home, excellent. I don't need to do anything else. I can just focus on footy. But then the whole mental side of it comes into it as well. And
things change very quick as well, don't they?
Yeah.
Injury, even if there's a bit of form. What's the future for AFLW in terms of that full time? When's that going to happen if it does?
Yeah, so this year was kind of significant in that they made a collective bargaining agreement, so CBA, kind of like, union type thing with our Players Association, and that was combining with the boys. So that's the first time we've had a combined CBA. So basically they have kind of the next 5-year progression in terms of wages, like how they'll increase and what that means. The metrics, so we want to be able to get more games. So at the moment there's 11. We'd love to get, there's 18 teams. So you want to be able to play everyone once would be ideal. But they're not there yet.
Why is it not like that already?
There's a lot of different things involved with it, but basically the main ones are around just funding, people watching. Like we don't have enough, I guess, going in that space to be able to warrant it, I suppose. Like the boys, they might get 70,000 to a game, 90,000. We only get a couple thousand. So as much as the AFL, we will get there, and we've already had such quick progression. Like I think we want the next thing quickly, and I would love it. Like it would be so good to play more games because, again, if you're used to playing games and suddenly you're only playing 10, and if you don't get picked, you're playing 7 or whatever. You're not actually getting game time in you, and that's all you want to do. You want to play sport and development, and we think that's the best way to get there. But it will get there, and it keeps progressing. So we're hoping. So there's these metrics that we have to meet to get to 12 games plus a couple. So we might be able to get to 14 games next year if we meet like crowd numbers or on the TV, like coverage or whatever. So people watching at home or people watching in person. So it's going to be like, it's a challenge for sure, and hopefully we can get there. But that's where they brought in, so that midweek game that we're talking about is usually during school holidays. So their thoughts are around that is that there'll be more people watching, potentially able to watch.
Boost those numbers. Because
they've got nothing going the next day. The kids can come to watch.
How much ownership do you feel to meet these metrics? Like it's really interesting where they've kind of gone, great, you can have what you want, but you guys need to get to A, B and C, which I can't think of many workplaces where it's like that, right? They don't put the onus back on the players.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because it's like there's only so much you can do in the end. Like we can keep promoting it on social media. Social media is obviously a massive one there. But at the end of the day, how do you actually get those people to come is hard. Like they're thinking about at our club, like, what can we do before the game to make people already kind of there? So whether it's like, hey, run clubs, you run, around the Gold Coast. How about you run around, we organise like a run around the stadium. We'll put on something at the stadium and then you'll be already at the game. That's cool. Hey, come and watch the game. Like, but it's really thinking out of the box with that kind of stuff to think, how do we get that extra couple thousand, which is actually, it's not a small number when you think of individual people.
For sure.
But then you get that kind of to a boys game and whatever. So
do they schedule the games that you guys play before the men sometimes to help? Because that would be able to be a great one.
So the way the seasons run, it doesn't overlap. So, actually it can at the end. So our first game is the bye weekend before the men's finals. So there have been a couple of games that have happened, I think, in the last couple of years where we've played before the men in the final series. But they have to, if our fixture comes out and there's nothing that aligns, like they can't, if that makes sense. So say Melbourne's playing Carlton in the men's, but Melbourne play Carlton in the women's in a different week. So like it doesn't work impossible as well. But eventually they'll have to play at the same time. And whether that's something they do, like obviously back in the day they used to play back-to-back VFL then AFL. Mm-hmm. But whether people, like these days, people don't really stick around for 8 hours at a footy field like they would have years ago. There's just so many things that people are doing. People are so busy. Whether they would actually stay and watch is a whole nother thing. Like it'll be interesting. We have a practice game in a few weeks against the Bulldogs. And it's a triple header, so the VFL boys play, the AFL boys play, and then we play.
Oh, wow.
Oh, okay.
So it'll be interesting to see, like, because the boys' game's on at 1 something and we're 5:10. So it'll be interesting to see, like, there's a fair time gap there, whether people stay around or if there's anything we can do. Like, it's a practice game, not an in season, but whether people will stay around to watch would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
But like even we made the final last year and it was a home final and, you know, it wasn't packed. But it would be cool if we could get to that point. But I think it will. As the skills grow and everything like that, it will get there. But the challenge at the moment is obviously growing those numbers, which is hard.
It seems like women's sport in Australia though is on a really good path.
Yeah. Oh, as I said about the Matildas and everything, like they're packing out stadiums,
big time.
and that's cool. But I guess when you split it between 18 teams, like if it was one team, you might be able to do that. Like, but there's 18, everyone has different alliances. We're on the Gold Coast, there's, you know, it's quite an NRL heavy, which we're obviously trying to influence. And I think women's wise, AFL's had the most growth in Queensland than any other state, which is really cool. So we're getting there, but it's just how do we get to that kind of level? And
that's it, the national level. And I actually made the stupidest question to Adam ever yesterday. I was like, well, like, do they not have like a national team for AFL? And he's like, well, yeah, they could.
Who do they play?
There'd be no one to play against. So I was like, oh, yeah, fair enough. So.
They have talked about doing those. I don't know if you ever saw like the Ireland versus Australia teams and things like that. Like they used to have those games
as well.
Yeah, because they've brought in leagues like around England, I think, has an AFL league, but it's, again, low level.
Yeah.
And US, they're trying to push it. And it'll be interesting to see whether it actually ever gets to international. Because someone said to me, is footy at the Olympics? And football, AFLW at the
Mm.
And I was like, no.
At least
I was like, we're the only ones.
What a stupid question.
Yeah.
Cool. No, it sounds like, you know, for the AFLW as well, it's some really exciting times ahead. And what I love about your journey is the setbacks and the resilience along the way to kind of keep going. And one thing we want to do at the end of every episode is ask our guest, if you could go back to the start of your journey, what's one golden piece of advice that you would give yourself or anyone else in those shoes?
Yeah, I feel like I've said this to a couple, like when I go to sometimes the clinics or talk to the kids, and I think it is just that, like, if it's something you really want to do, like persisting and trying to find ways to get in, whether it is moving clubs or things like that I've had to do in the past, like, or just finding the joy in what you're doing and like, I guess it is a little bit of just hoping. But I think just backing yourself in and knowing, like, if you really strongly think you can do it, like, just keep pushing, because I guess if I'd stopped, I wouldn't be here. Whereas having kept pushing and knowing that I was good enough, but maybe not exactly sure how I was going to do it, but knowing that I was and just keep persisting is probably the biggest one there. Yeah,
and it's so often that the point where you're like, I'm ready to give up, that's the point where you push through. Yeah. And you get there.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for coming on.
No, thanks for having me. It was really good discussion. You guys are great.
That was awesome.
I wish you were my captain when I was playing football. I reckon I'd been a bit of a better player. But yeah, really exciting time that's going on. Work with Gold Coast Suns, AFLW as a whole.
Yeah, we'll have to get you to a game.
Yeah,
we'll have to get
100%.
you some merch. I should have brought some Gold Coast merch.
I'm keen. We'll get the team down for sure.
Yeah. I think we're off to the Suns. This is the men's side.
Yeah.
In a couple of weeks.
Well, if you have, so if Alex Rance and stuff is involved, then you should get around. Which game you?
It's the
27th of July.
That game
this weekend.
I was going to say this is the Q clash, so Brisbane versus Gold Coast.
Yeah,
that's the one. Yeah,
so we get
big one. Brisbane, our rivals. So that'll be an interesting.
Without Singham, we'll sort them out.
Well, we haven't lost away from home. We haven't lost at home. We've won every game at home. The boys. We just haven't won away from home. So see if they can keep that roll going. Hopefully, but it should be a good game. You guys will enjoy it.
Yeah,
love it. Pumps.
Lovely, great work, guys.